Welcome to She's on Cue. Today we'll be chatting with our panel of professional women about resilience at work and the changes we've all made to adapt to the new working normal. Hello, my name's Robin Bailey and I am your MC for the next hour. I'm a breakfast announcer at 97.3 here in Brisbane, and I also contribute to the Weekend Today show, and I am a massive fan of developing personal resilience, but we might get to that a little bit later. Firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which today's event is taking place and to pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging. Today's virtual event is being live streamed and it will also be available to view later today using the same link that you're using right now. Now, we are using the magic of video today, so while we may look like we're sitting on top of each other or in fact close together, we are observing social distancing guidelines in the studio here, so don't worry. If you have a question for either myself or one of the panellists, please click on the speech bubble below at any time during the discussion. While every care is taken, please remember that any information that you hear at our She's on Cue events is provided for educational purposes only and doesn't substitute for personal financial advice. Should you want to action any suggestions you hear today, please consult a professional advisor before making any changes to your financial affairs. Now, let's find out about our panel for today. First is Judy Hawkins, the Head of People and Culture at the Royal Flying Doctor Service, the Queensland section. Over to you, Judy. Tell us about yourself.
Well, thanks, Robin. Hi, I'm very pleased to be here today. I work with the Queensland Royal Flying Doctor Service and we support Queenslanders in remote, rural and regional areas with their healthcare journey. We have 9 bases located around Queensland, and we're a purpose-driven organisation, and I'm really proud to be working with them.
And a charity non-for-profit, which I think is so important.
We are.
Excellent. Now we'll move to Jade Collins, the Director and Co-Founder of Femeconomy. Jade, tell us about you.
Thank you, Robin. It's lovely to be here today. Femeconomy is a national membership organisation that educates consumers, business owners and budget owners on how their purchasing decisions can create gender equality.
Great. And the third person on our panel today is Kylie Robinson, the General Manager of Human Resources at QSuper. Tell us about you, Kylie.
Well, I'm proud to be here today as well. I'm a part of QSuper, who's hosting the event this afternoon. I've been in the HR industry for about 20 years now, and certainly what we're going through at the moment is unprecedented and never seen it before. So really proud to be part of the panel today so we can navigate this together.
Yeah, and we will. Look, the first part of our discussion is going to focus on resilience at work. To keep it interactive, you'll have polls for you to take part in. So to share your vote, please click on the pie chart icon at the bottom right of the screen. The more you interact, the more we can participate with you. Now, our first poll, which is now open, looks to understand how much your workplace has changed. We want to hear from you. So please click on that pie chart icon and let us know what's going on. When we talk about a resilient workforce, we're often referring to the personal characteristics of staff and leaders, which allow them to adapt successfully to changes and challenges. Particularly in the last few months, we've seen how crucial it is for a workforce to be resilient and adaptable so that they can continue to operate and serve the end customer. Without them, you do not have a workforce. So Judy, what makes a resilient team?
It's a great question, Robin. Our way of life has transformed recently in a very short space of time. So people have had to be thinking about how they'll be resilient in their personal life as well as in their work life. And that can be quite overwhelming. At the RFDS, we've looked at ways to support individuals through that. So our leaders have taken a very close and supportive role with understanding what our employees are going through in their personal space, which can be a myriad of circumstances. We've also looked at how we can support our employees to be resilient at work. And when I think about that, we've had a lot of activities in place and we've had to adjust and be agile and adapt almost every day. It comes under four sort of areas for me. The first is our connectedness. So
how much you're connected to each other?
Yes, at work and at home and in our communities. So we have a very diverse workforce. We have workforce spread throughout Queensland and they're based in small communities. So our connectedness is very important, and we've done that through regular updates and communication. I think certainty is also something that has become very important for people. We have to recognise that there are things beyond our control. But I guess it's how we respond to those circumstances that really allows us to stand the test of time.
So making people feel like they're secure, that they know what is expected of them and they know that they're going to be okay moving forward.
100%.
Right. Okay.
So we've worked very hard to keep people focused on our purpose,
Right.
And we've worked very hard to ensure that people understand what our objectives are and communicate with them regularly. So, ensuring that as much as possible in the workplace, we've got some certainty around the sorts of things that we need to be doing. We've also maintained a very optimistic outlook. So we've all experienced what it's like to go home at the end of the day and turn the news on, and much of it is about the situation, these unprecedented times that we're in. So we've tried to ensure that our comms with our people have been about the good things that we're doing and reinforcing and reminding them of that.
And because I think too, you can look at, there's a whole bunch of reasons why it's terrible and you can't control those, but you can control how you feel about it.
100%. So I think how we role model our behaviours at work, particularly as a leadership team, is vitally important. So if we're responding the right way, we send a very positive message. Look, the fourth area I think is looking after our well-being and our health. That can be our mental health and it can be our physical health. And if you're looking after yourself, you're able to thrive, and then you can respond and adapt. So I think we're going to continue to have to adapt for a little while longer. So they're the sorts of things that we look at doing at the moment.
So that's from a charity perspective. Kylie, what about from a big organisation like QSuper?
Very, very similar. I think when we think about resilience, be it to your point, either at work or in your personal life, it's how we bounce back from things. We can't control what is going on around us at the moment, but we certainly can control how we respond. And I think for it's looking at the positives. How can we, what can we control? What can we influence? How can we move forward? Because to your point, it's going to be here for a while yet. So, and we've done similar things in our organisation. When we started working virtually, we created a whole heap of online tools, which was how to work remotely, looking after your mental health, taking breaks, and it was that physical and mental well-being as well. So very similar.
Jade, is it any different in your world or kind of similar?
It's pretty similar, and I think that research shows and tells us that the single biggest predictor of resilience, of human resilience, is the availability of interpersonal support. So having people around you, organisationally, leadership, family, friends, to reach out to and connect with. As you said, Judy, it's that connectedness with other people that gives us the inner strength, knowing that we've got that support around us to be able to deal with the difficult things in life, and to give us the energy and the will to move forward through those times.
Yeah.
And I guess it's acknowledging too that some people might be up at some point and then down at another, and that's a movable feast as well as it goes through. And that's personal, but in a workplace there's a culture around that too.
That's right. And I think the challenge with that is that you're not all in one place at the moment. We're working in isolation. So we have to look at ways of being able to maintain that connectedness through, a digital remote working enhancements. We touched on this earlier, that we would have stand-ups every morning, and I got to know the people I worked with around their pets and their dogs. So we were having the conversations that you'd normally have in a corridor, just in a different way.
I know we had a situation at work where someone was working remotely, and if their cat cat wasn't a part of the morning exercise. We're like, where's your cat? Where's your cat? I should remember its name too. I saw it so often. Anyway, just a reminder to everyone to please participate in the poll. Just click on the bottom right pie chart icon. Now, we've been asked to make lots of changes this year. Many of us have moved from work from office to home. We jump on a Zoom call rather than into a meeting room. We juggle homeschooling with work commitments. Some of us have lost our job or had hours cut. It has been super tough. Leaders are checking in on their people and asking about their physical, mental and emotional health, along with supporting their work performance. Now let's go to the first results of our first poll, which was asked, how much has your workplace changed throughout 2020? Let's check that poll result. It's we're a little bit behind you guys, so we're just waiting for you. Hopefully you're clicking on your icons and we'll be able to get those polls up so that we can tell you. No, see, don't you love technology? Okay, we might come back to that and we'll get that poll result and come back to you. But please keep working on those polls, keep clicking on them so that we can see actually what's going on with you guys and what you think. So let's go to Kylie. What are some of the ways your organisation has supported its people?
I think for us it was really focusing on safety first. So we needed to make sure that we could get our people working from home safely and remotely. We did have some critical workers stay in the office, so it was also making sure that they were safe as well. Following from that as well, to what Judy was saying before, it was making sure we've got also a very purpose-led organisation, which is that focus on members. And supporting our people just to say, we're still here for our members, you know, and keeping that, it really galvanised people around that, and it gave people a sense of purpose and focus on that. Similarly, as at the beginning of this, we had people having to homeschool kids and, you know, sharing their office space with partners or kids and all the rest. So we created a whole heap of virtual tools for leaders and employees about how to work remotely. But it wasn't just some of the information that we could gather. We set up a Yammer group. So people were sharing their own experiences, which also went to that connectedness. So people would be jumping online with the different tips and connecting with each other as well. I think one of the other things that we've seen come through this as well is flexibility. We knew that you know, people's lives have changed. You know, partners may not have been working, looking after family members. And we became much more, there was better conversations about flexibility. What can you do? What support do you need? There were people that needed to jump onto a Zoom call to set up their children for the day. So it was letting us know, look, I need to be offline at this because I'm setting up a homeschooling, but then we'll be back online. So I think one of the things we've done there for our people is show a lot more flexibility and really focus on what can be done and the outputs of the day versus, you know, the standard office hours. And that's given people a lot more you know, a lot more time with their family and a lot more balance as well through this as well.
It's interesting though, because we're all sitting here and you guys are looking at it from an organisation perspective, but there are people who aren't coping.
Yeah.
And how do you navigate if they're just not being able to deal with what's going on, Jade?
Yeah, I think it's really important to be aware of that and to keep checking in with people. Because it does change day to day. You know, it's impossible to plan at the moment. People are missing out on milestones and things. One of the things that we started to do as soon as it hit in March was to start to reach out to our members, because not everybody is living the same pandemic. We all are in really different circumstances. People who are health impacted, are at higher risk, you know, that they are having to consider really different things. Family circumstances, job losses all come into this. So actually speaking to individuals and understanding what's your circumstance, what are you dealing with? And it's been really different across our membership. So we have had some members whose businesses are absolutely booming over this time. They've had business growth, so conversations with them have been around introductions and collaborations.
Okay, who are these businesses? No, I mean seriously, like a good news story. We hear so many terrible ones.
Well, we've Edible Beauty, which is a natural organic skincare manufacturing company. They actually started to produce organic hand sanitizer over this time.
So they pivoted, the great Covert word.
Yeah, but you know, there's now global demand for that ongoing. You know, hand
Wow.
sanitizer. When is that going away? We don't know.
No. Wow.
And telehealth was another, you know, huge boom. Just the ability for psychologists and health practitioners to be able to use technology and legitimately connect, whereas, you know, the profession has sort of been against telehealth and not supported it. So the ability of psychology businesses to connect with rural and remote people who, you know, have less services available to them, as you would know, Judy, and who are struggling with mental health issues without perhaps the community support around them that we in a capital city would take for granted. So, yeah, those are some examples.
Judy, I find the Royal Flying Doctor Service so interesting because you don't have customers or members. You're going into situations to save lives, and then you put all this other stuff on top of that. How's that impacting?
Yeah, we have, I guess, two audiences in our organisation. We've got those people who support the frontline staff and work in an office, and we would adapt and use very similar tools that you've talked about. We've also got our frontline health professionals who and pilots who are facing a very different set of adaptive type of arrangements. So I think the key thing for us is we've got to ensure that our people feel safe, particularly in the front line. And so we've done that through, you know, the things that you would hear about, ensuring that their personal protective equipment is up to date, ensuring our aircraft are, you know, fully functioning, able to transport patients. We've also had to ensure that we've communicated with them about changes. So and things happen overnight. So as soon as we get information from one source, it can quickly change. So we've got to be on the front foot and ensuring that they're communicated. And I think in terms of our patients, well, they trust us. So we have to continue to deliver the service that they've come to know and trust.
And some people can't exist without you, so, you know,
100%.
thank God for you.
Yeah.
The poll results are in. So how much has your workplace changed throughout 2020? Interestingly, look at that. 49% say some changes, but 51% say complete pivot. What do you reckon? Are you surprised by that?
No.
Why not?
Well, it's completely different. I mean, I think everyone has faced change. From a personal or organisational perspective, change is now, you know, you need to adapt to some level of change daily, and you don't really know what the situation is going to be day to day. So yeah, people have had to, depending on industry impact, you know, we've had members in the arts, hospitality, retail and events, and those industries are really impacted and really, really suffering, and they've had to do complete pivots and in some cases to shut down. Whereas others, as I've said, you know, that they're booming and they're doing really, really well. So yeah, it's different.
And interesting, 1% says no change. And it's funny, in the media where I work, essentially I still go into the studio, I'm still working with the people that I work with, but the rest of the radio station's not there.
Yes.
So, I mean, my world hasn't changed in the workplace, but everyone else's around me has. And that makes it quite unsettling. And I think in some way most people, at least if it's not them, it's their partner or their friends, and they're adapting to that. Anyway, let's move on to the second part of our discussion today, which centres on COVID-driven innovation. While COVID-19 continues to pose enormous challenges, a silver lining is that it is also driving new ideas and solutions. Jade, what were some of the unexpected changes on business and women in particular?
I think women are juggling a lot of different things and wearing many hats, and we know that they have been disproportionately impacted by COVID because they have, you know, in our members' cases, they're managing businesses, but there is an additional COVID administration overlay to everything at the moment. So that's a workload on top. Then there's the workload of the additional, you know, cleaning and domestic duties on top that we've had to bring to bear with COVID. And then there's homeschooling.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that homeschooling, more than anything, is the single thing that has driven, you know, people crazy around the bend. And my husband is a high school teacher, so he's kind of during this time going, yep, now everyone, he's feeling very appreciated, let me say.
Absolutely. And it's funny now that we're facing potential of maybe another lockdown, let's hope not with Victoria, but I know a number of parents, particularly of smaller children, who said, I'm not doing it. I'm just not, it's too hard.
But I think from an organisational perspective, and just back to the innovation question, Robin, one of the businesses is Beaumont People. They have actually instituted a 4-day working week without a change to remuneration for their entire organisation from a wellbeing perspective. So that's been amazing to see.
Kylie, what do you think?
Oh, the innovation that has been out there has been phenomenal, and it's anything from small innovation to larger innovations. I look at our workforce where people innovated. People went quickly online. So a lot of our leadership and training programs all of a sudden were on Zoom. Our member seminars, so that we could still connect with them and get information out to them. Online, our investment update, because a lot of people want to know what's going on and what's happening. We did that online this year and we had 1,800 people. So similar today, we were able to connect with people that we don't potentially normally connect with because they're not at the venue. I think there's also been some other innovations as well, and one that I'm particularly proud of that QSuper did, and it actually goes to the health industry as well. We have a number of people that are insured, and normally when people first get insurance, there's a waiting period. And for us, we were very conscious that a lot of our members are the police, are the nurses, they're the frontline workers that are looking after Queenslanders. And we just felt that it wasn't right. They needed to be covered and we needed to be there for them. So we made sure that they were covered from day one, that they didn't have that exclusion. Because if they were going to be there for Queenslanders, we needed to make sure we were there for them.
Wow.
Yeah, product changes like that don't normally happen that fast, that quickly. But even with the regulators and working with the member thing, people just said this is the right thing to do.
That's still impressive though for a massive organisation to shift that perspective. And was it because that's just the feedback that was coming back through to you?
No, we just knew it was right. Similar to Judy, we are member focused. We say members at the heart of everything we do. But you've got to believe that. And when it's times like this when it matters, that you've really got to prove that. Yeah. And it's doing things like that. I look at our contact centres. They made sure that they're online answering queries. And as people wanted some more information and advice, we, again, pivoted a number of our resources in advice to make sure people were getting the information. We had our claims managers, because we've got people who are insured. They got on the phone and rang our members just to say, we're here, we're online, we're here for you. And it's giving people that peace of mind, because we've been saying there's so much that is uncertain, but to know that there is someone there that can help you, navigate what is going on and provide you with information, it's really powerful. And I do think, as I said, I look at our organisation, our values are important to us, our members are, and I've always said it's what's defined us, and it's also what I've seen it absolutely unite us. Having that sense of purpose has made a difference during this as well.
Judy, much innovation through your organisation? I would have thought you're fairly streamlined anyway.
We are, but to Jade's point, I think the number one innovation that has come through COVID is our telehealth offering. And that's it's interesting to look at that from a human resources lens. So obviously our patients and the people in rural and remote areas of Queensland have benefited because we haven't had to transport them out of their home. They've been able to telehealth in. But it's also supported our ability to continue to have people who fly in and fly out, who have been restricted as a result of the border closures. We've been able to engage them and continue to offer employment to them because the doctors in particular can telehealth and provide that service. So it's been innovative for our patients, for our service offering, but it's also been innovative for our ability to engage our employees.
I guess the big question is, we're all still adapting. There is no rule book in this. We're all still in the middle of it. How much of these innovations are going to stay, do you think?
Well, I think telehealth is definitely going to stay.
Yeah, but there's such a need for it,
and
now there's an evidence base, and I think flexible working and remote working the same.
Yeah.
Before we had, Kylie referred to, people are looking at output now rather than attendance. There's a huge evidence base for the success of flexible working now and remote working. It can be done. Gartner HR surveyed organisations, and 88% said that during COVID that they'd had to transition their workforce to remote working, and 74% of those organisations said that they would continue to have a proportion of their workforce working remotely post-COVID. So that's significant. Yeah. And, you know, we're all HR practitioners by background. You know, it's sometimes not easy to have the conversations about flexible working with leadership. You know, some are resistant to it. They
but
find it difficult.
Want it. We won't be able to go back.
Yeah.
You know, we surveyed, as we've been going through this, we've surveyed our staff as well to say, you know, what have you enjoyed about working from home? What have been the things that can better enable you? Mm-hmm. You know, post-COVID, do you want to come back to the office, do a combination, or work from home? And we had about 65% of our people, they want a combination moving forward. 30% actually said, I would like to work at home permanently. And there was only 5% that wanted to come back. So, you know, these innovations are going to stay.
Yeah. Is the output still the same? Like, I think while we're still in this space, but is it going to impact what you need from people if they're at home? Yeah,
it is interesting because we did, you know, we're seeing that the productivity of our people is still there. The output's there. We asked them, how are you finding your productivity? And they felt that it was the same or improved. What we are finding, though, that people would like to be able to connect, meet more for some of that connected, so that face-to-face, which is more around some of that innovation and collaboration. So, you know, there's some tasks that are really well performed at home, and it's more that task-based. It's email, it's doing a paper. Whereas there are some things where you do get a bit more of that feeding of the energy of the room when you're sort of looking to innovate and brainstorm. So I think moving forward, what we'll do is look at why we choose to come together, maybe in an office scenario, or when we choose to stay at home. And it'll be more about the work that we're doing, not, oh, you need to be in the office today or you're working from home tomorrow. But, you know, with social distancing, it's here for a while anyway. So, you know, we can't all come back into the offices. Yeah.
I find elbow pumping so unsatisfying. So need to come up with some other way. But I mean, I guess that leads me to the next question about this whole space, and that's mental health. And I don't think there's ever been a time than now where that has become much more important, and that blurring between how people are personally coping and how they're professionally coping, because I think those two things are now married. Are you aware of what's going on with your people mentally?
I think those two things have always been married. You can't separate parts of yourself. People, if they are struggling with something at home, they by default bring that to work with themselves in some way. Of course they will be distracted if something is going on for them personally. And I think it, you know, that ability or that window that leaders have had through, you know, Zoom calls into people's home lives is actually really beneficial, because it emphasises and has brought out our shared humanity, and, you know, that we are whole people. We don't just divide up little slices of ourselves and exist differently in these different contexts. So, yeah.
I definitely think it's created the space to improve and enhance wellness programs in the workplace, to engage a little more with our employees. I think I said earlier on, one of the leadership traits that we will look for is our leaders understanding a little more about the individual circumstances of our employees. But it also, we also need to be facilitating activities in the workplace that support people in that respect. So we did, I mean, we're very blessed. We have healthcare professionals in our team. So we did mental health podcasts. We did yoga once a week online.
Really? And did people participate in that?
Yes, they did.
Absolutely engaged in it. Great.
And I think looking forward, we'll probably see an emergence, I would think, in our space around wellness activities and more formal programs to address.
And to me, it's not just the leaders. One of the things that I've found as well is, I think everyone is just becoming more mindful of what's going on for their colleagues and checking in. So rather than saying, well, that's the leader's responsibility to check in, other people are. So when it comes to the training, we've done similar thing. We've done some training. We've done some mental first health aid training for our people. So that's everyone, which just being more aware of what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, there has been a lot of responsibility on leaders, but I've also been really pleased with all of our people to see everyone else just reaching out and checking in. I know the other day I was trying to do 2 things at once on a call, and I don't do that really well because I've got 2 screens. So I've got one in front of me, which is the video, and then I was checking an email to the side. And
do you have a no, like you have to see the person policy?
Yeah, well, we do it in our team, and again, that's just checking in to see how people are. You can then see what's going on in their background, you can read their body language, and we've done that just as part of that check-in for both physical and mental health. And yes, I was trying to do 2 things at once, so I'm on the video chat and then I'm looking at an email to the side. But one of my team members was on the phone with me. The minute we hung up from the call, they called me back, just saying, "Oh, look, I'm just checking in on you. No. You seemed a little bit more distracted. You seemed a little bit distracted, which is not like me, because normally when I'm on a call, I'm in the call.
Yeah.
And I don't like to try and multitask. But this particular, there was an email I was looking out for. I'm like, I need to get one. But they noticed a change in my behaviour, and they immediately picked up the phone. And just
did you say I was busted?
Yeah, literally I did. I said, and then it was interesting. Well, they don't, and they'd also picked up. They said, but that's not like you.
Yeah,
you normally are in a call and on a call. You're not distracted. Said, and that's why I picked up the phone. And to me, that's been another real positive. It's the mindfulness of all of our people, I think, through this has really changed. And that's, again, another real positive for me.
Well, going on from that, our final poll for the event is now live, and we'd like to hear from you on how you're staying sane. So click on that pie chart icon and let us know. In fact, it is just that coming up for us. Yes, okay. The top things I'm going to do to stay positive and resilient is the question: healthy eating, exercise, talking to loved ones, new hobby, and practicing gratitude. Are we surprised that exercise kicks in at 29%?
No. I think a lot of people who perhaps didn't exercise as much as they would have liked commenced it, even if it was walking through the isolation period. And it was wonderful to get out in the community and actually say hi to people that you don't normally see. Everyone walked. The dogs were walked a lot.
Well, because it wasn't just the exercise, which is good for your physical health, but it was that connectedness.
Yes.
I know my gym closed, so there was a group of us, we said we'll still go online, so we just did it through your Zoom or FaceTime. And it was 2 things. It was our physical health, but it was that connectedness. We stayed connected with each other, and therefore, if you'd had a bad day, going, well, okay, I know we're getting online and doing this tomorrow morning. It had both benefits.
My 85-year-old mother did her gym class online. It was hilarious, and she was using like soda bottles as weights, bless. But that's adapting and doing it.
Absolutely.
So what about the fact that the smallest percentage is a new hobby?
Kind of might be hard.
Yeah, if people really had brain space to, take up new things and explore new things, we've had lots more time.
Cooking, maybe.
Yeah.
Things indoors.
I've never got that far. One day.
Rather than take up a new hobby, I did think we had to learn a new skill. So I know just before Easter, our leadership team wanted to do just a little video message for the team. And I Googled online going, I've got an iPhone, so does the rest of the team. We should be able to do this. Let's see how to create an iMovie. And online it showed you how to create a little iMovie and put it together in 5 minutes. I'm like, I'm going to give this a crack.
Yeah, that's good.
And it was interesting because I said to the leadership team, I need you to get a video of yourself just with a bit of a message, send it through and I'll put it together. And even my team, because we've got internal comms in our team, everyone went, "Oh, did you get the internal comms team to help you with that?" I said, "No, I have."
I did it myself.
So I have learnt one new skill through this. I can put together an iMovie.
There you go. And is it hard? Just Google iMovie and we can all do it?
Literally, it is that easy. You just get you get the video and it just cuts in together. You can put overlay tunes. The only thing that I learned is I didn't say to the people, make sure that you're all either in landscape or portrait.
Yeah.
So
there you go.
My tip for next time, because then it would have just slid a little bit smoother through there. But I think people looked at it from that was the thought that counted of taking some time just to do a personal message.
And I think the other thing, and which we really should mention, 21% saying gratitude. And I know certainly in my personal life I've had a lot of grief in the last 5 years. One thing that can really move you out, or moved me out of those moments of feeling devastated, is when you think, I'm just going to go and help someone else, because it stops you thinking about yourself and actually pushes through. And that's super hard if your partner's lost their job, there's issues around maybe losing your house, but gratitude is so important, isn't it?
It is. And I think that also comes from those of us with elderly parents who have had to practice isolation even when restrictions have lifted. taking yourself out of your own comfort zone and going and visiting them. Or taking food, cooking a meal, just those little things that these times you may have not as regularly done. I know for me personally, it's made me think a lot about what it must be like for my parents who don't necessarily feel comfortable out and about in the community.
Well, now let's talk about how we can navigate the new normal. Jade, what are some tips to manage new work patterns, such as ongoing work from home or transitioning, more importantly, back into the office?
Yeah, I think it's holding on for as long as possible to the flexible working, and, really also thinking about if your rhythm and routines have shifted at home, that you perhaps are a man who's been working from home for the first time and you've been able to share the care and you've been able to cook meals and share some of the domestic load, actually preserving that contribution, I think, is really, really important. It's been wonderful to see out in the community, dads walking around with children. The pavements have been flooded with men with prams during the day. It's great. Transitioning back into office life, I think, is going to require lots of support from leadership in terms of new rhythms and ways of working. So that's going to be something that leaders really have to adapt to as well, and will require support from their leadership to do.
Kylie, you're in a big organisation. That's a tough thing. A lot of people.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And it's not only just tough for our people. One of the things we've talked about, the role of leaders in this as well, and leaders are people too, and they play a big role in this. I think we talked about the resilient teams and that importance of communication. Our leaders have a very big role in communicating to their people what is expectations, so keeping them focused on what's going on and purpose, but also what's going on around them, because there's so much, particularly at the beginning of this, there was so much information coming in where people were information overload. So it's how can we get some people distilling that to what's important so people know what they need to know. Yeah. I think for us as well, as leaders, it was that very big focus on safety. So making sure that people had that safety first mind. We've talked about that connectedness. I think in most organisations or even just friends, they've really focused on that connectedness. I think there's been a lot of team trivias, virtual drinks, both formal and informal channels, just to keep everyone still connected and still having that. Because you can find that when you are at home working all the time, when you're in the office, you do the incidental drive-by, it's the lift conversation, it's walking by someone's desk, or the Monday morning, how was your weekend? When you're sitting at home behind a computer all the time, you think, oh, can I just pick up a phone to say to someone, how was your weekend? Or let's just have some idle chit-chat. So people have made sure they've had those virtual coffees to ensure that is still there. So I think there's a lot going on, but I'd also say, through this as well, I know that we've had lockdowns and we haven't been able to travel, but it goes to that mental health. I think as well we need to be very conscious of our wellbeing and finding ways to switch off at the end of the day. Be it that close the laptop lift, if you've got your own another office, closing that door and disconnecting. It's making sure you try and have a long weekend, get away, or still have some holidays and having those breaks, because to not have a break for a sustained period will become a lot. And I think that's important for all of our people, but also think it's important for our leaders as well, that they role model, just switching off and taking a break. Because I think sometimes as leaders as well, people do look to us for that role modelling, and you think you need to be perfect and get everything right. But I'd also say to people online that are leaders, be kind to yourself. You're human. You're going through this as well. It's not, you're not going to be perfect, but always give it a go. If it works, it works. If you need to pivot, I think we've said they're the two words I think in 2020: pivot and you're on mute. I think just be kind, but also have a laugh. I know as well. Still trying to keep a bit of humour in there, because I think that laughter is good for us as we go through as well for that new normal.
I need to ask this though: if people, if anyone's watching and thinking, well, I want to live a different life and I want to go back to my workplace, but I want it to be different. Quick advice to how to go to your boss and ask for that. because I think that if they know that that's something that they really need, but it's frightening. It's scary to go and ask for something that may be different to what your expectation was. What would you guys say?
I think it's opening up and you know, not being vulnerable, but just stating that you want that engagement, but here are a few things that are you're concerned about. And you know, I think most leaders now are open to those conversations. I really do. I think decoupling productivity from location is now the new thing. If you don't want to work in the office, you don't need to. But I think on the whole, the majority want a bit of both. It's nice to have that connectedness in the office as well as from
That's at home. Jade, what do you reckon?
Absolutely. Just speak with your leader. You know, don't be afraid of what the reaction might be. Be transparent and ask for what is going to work for you and your life. I think we have one life, we want a great life. Family and home and community is part of that life. And just, be
Ask for it.
transparent. Ask for it.
Be
Why
brave.
not? Why not?
Yeah.
Be brave.
We have our Q&A with the panel coming up shortly, so please start sending in your questions by clicking on the speech bubble. We love to get all your feedback. Judy, what are your tips from the field for maintaining both physical and mental health? We've covered off some of this, but is there anything else that you'd suggest?
Nothing that comes to mind. I think we've covered a full gamut there, Robin. I think mainly it's being honest with yourself and looking at what you need to do for yourself.
Actually, it's true. You've got to look and work out, you know, in all of these changes, I think it's super important that everyone goes, okay, this worked for me, and actually identifying those things and also what didn't, and it's okay.
That's right.
But I think it's also okay to ask for help. So I know at the beginning of this, I started with great intent, and I used to go for the walk every night, and then that dropped off. And again, with the friends that I would normally go to the gym, it was closed, and we were just on the phone call. And I just said, I'm not getting up in the morning. I just don't have the motivation, because I would normally meet them at the gym, and that was my commitment to them. Yeah. And they just went, excellent. They went, fine. Well, we're going to set up now online. We'll work out whether we do it on FaceTime, and I think we're doing it on Messenger, and we now do that once a week. So I think also, you know, the other thing on mental health is ask for help. Let people around you know what's going on for you, because it was easy. All I had to do was say, I'm struggling, get out of bed, and they were these friends were straight on it. They went, all right, this is the time. And now when that, I know, I was up 5:30 this morning. The four of us were online, and but that's that commitment as well.
Okay, we have a first question. This is to Kylie from Annette, wondering what your tips are to reboot for the marathon now that we know it isn't going to be a sprint. That is a great question.
Well, I think what went through my mind there is my sister-in-law was making me do a 5 and 10K run. So I'm like, oh my God, does someone thinking I need to do a marathon? So just slightly distracted there for a moment. Look, I think with the marathon, it's recognising that it's that. And it is making sure that we can continue to work safely as we are. It is changing as we go. It is adapting as we go. But I think there will be people that want to come back to the office. There will be people that want things to go faster. You know, we had that. We had people that were desperate to get back in the office. But we've really said we've got to do this in a safe way. We've got to do this for, you know, thinking about the organisation. We're adapting to individuals as we go, because we've had some people that wanted to come back into the office because the home environment really wasn't conducive for them, and it was having an impact on them. And we just said, that's fine. We can come back in. But I think it is, to me, I think it is just recognising this marathon. In that, what we've done with all of our people is we've surveyed them as well to say, what is it that you're looking for? So before, when you said having the conversation, we've asked, what are you looking for moving forward? What are the things that can enable you at home? What are the things you're looking for when you're getting back? And that's really helping us as an organisation with insight of what do our people want? What do they need to continue to enable them at home? You know, but again, it's having that conversation to work out, because to the point I think Judy and Jade have made, this is different for everyone.
Yes, absolutely.
Whilst for our organisation, you might say we're in the same boat, everyone's journey in this is individual, and I think it's recognising as well that we will have different people going, come on, sprint, let's go, I want to be back in the office tomorrow, or no, we're home ever. But it is a marathon, and that race is going to look like very different for every single one of our people, and it's making sure that we adjust to that as well.
Question 2 to Jade from Esther. Great panel, thank you. What suggestions do you have for holidays with people who have limited funds? Great question. Need a break or holiday? Certainly in Queensland, next weekend's a long weekend.
Yeah, I think in Queensland we are so fortunate. We have beautiful sunshine like we have today. We have so many amazing locations that are, drivable within driving distance. So, you know what, I would say go onto the tourism website and have a look for somewhere close by that you can go and camp or even drive to, get to a beach or inland. Look for somewhere that, perhaps you haven't been before, or ask a friend for recommendations. Someone who perhaps, like me, I'm not great at getting out and about, so I always ask my friends who are a bit more adventurous for some tips. Yeah.
Great. Question 3. This is actually for everyone. It's from Kate. Role models. Are there any role models or commentators that you are following that have given you some good content that you've resonated with?
I don't have one. I'm reading a lot at the moment, and they're snippets from a lot of professionals in my area, as well as commentators, and Brené Brown springs to mind. I take snippets from a lot and sort of apply it where I need to.
Jade?
Elizabeth Gilbert released a great a video that's been circulating, and I sent it to my friends actually, and it was really relevant for dealing with particularly isolation, and it was about, basically the simplified message was this is who you are in your heart and this is where you live, so in your head. So knowing who you are and being conscious of that and remembering who you are, and also thinking about your mindset, because this is where you live.
Yeah, that's a good point. Brenna says, great conversation, thank you. I have colleagues who work for smaller companies that seem less able or willing to adapt to flexible working arrangements or to adopt the technology that would facilitate it. Can you comment on this? Are larger companies naturally more capable of adapting because they have more resources, or is this not necessarily the case? That is a great question. Because smaller companies are up to individuals sometimes, and it's whether the individual wants to pivot. Whereas big organisations, I think there are more people checks and balancing. Is that a fair assumption?
Well, it's interesting because a lot of people in our organisation would normally say we're a little bit slower because we're in financial services. It's highly regulated. We're looking after people's money. So you've got to have a lot of controls around that. But I look at how we've been able to, as an organisation, respond to COVID. And, we went from having most of our people in the building to out inside a week. Now, if you project planned around that, people would have said, no, never going to happen. But to me, it comes down to, is there a need? Is there a driver? And for us, it was very much around, we've got to be able, we possibly won't be able to work in the offices. We need to support our members. We need to get online. So I think if there's a strong enough, external control or a strong enough will, you'll find a way to make that happen. Because, I always thought it was probably easier in smaller organisations because you only need a few people on board.
But if the person in charge is not willing to adapt, then that's where the problem is.
It is.
I mean, it comes down to personality in that respect. It's an organisational culture versus an individual. I remember interviewing Bob Geldof years and years and years ago with Live Aid in the 80s. And I said to him, why was it that so many people responded in that moment and donated, and why did that change the way that we saw famine and stuff in the world? And he said, because everyone was disturbed. And to make change, you have to be disturbed. And I guess a global pandemic is disturbing a lot of us.
Absolutely.
And that's the kind of thing that's making, everyone change. Anyone else has got a...
Well, I think from our perspective, so many of our members are women-owned businesses, and they already worked remotely, flexibly, and offered it to their workforces. So there was very little transition actually when it came to those sorts of arrangements, and it was pretty seamless for them. And I would say it's pretty industry specific as well.
Yeah. I was going to say that it's interesting because the frontline health workers haven't been able to change. They've still got to go to work every day. So they're not working at home. They have to front And you hear about that, I'm speaking, for our organisation, but you hear it in the media with nurses in particular saying, please have some respect because I'm here looking after you. And I think we need to acknowledge that. And we were very, very conscious of that when we brought those people in offices back into the workplace. We didn't say welcome back. We said you now have a COVID-safe workplace, because we needed to acknowledge that not everybody in our organisation was working remotely. They were still working the way they had always worked. So I think that's something to be mindful of.
Yeah, absolutely. Katrina has a question for you, Judy. Mental health. What are your views on the role creativity plays in supporting mental wellness in the workplace? And do you think organisations will be more open to trying new approaches to supporting people in this vein and breaking out of the mainstream approaches?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my personal view is yes. I think I'd love to see some more creativity, in our, well, not in our work, just generally around how we address mental health. I think, sporadically and ad hoc team sessions, they do cooking and they go on adventure, rock climbing or whatever it might be. So there is some creativity there, but I think as I said, it's a bit of a crystal ball and unknown. I think our wellness programs are definitely going to shift and adapt to the new way of working, and I think creativity will be a big part of that.
And creativity in terms of, like, what does that actually look like?
Yeah. It's a great question. I don't know, because my shift is what I think is creative, and it might be art but we were talking earlier about the arts sector. So here is an opportunity for the arts sector to innovate and perhaps provide those services to organisations that need to look at wellness and need to look at wellness programs and then come up with some new offering. I don't know what that would look like, but I know it's definitely in the future.
Leonie has a question for you, Kylie. We're about to transition gradually back into the office, and there's a mix of comfort levels with our people with that. What have you done to increase people's comfort level about a return to the workplace? That is such a good question. I think people have become really agoraphobic and about actually leaving their comfort of their home. It's a big one. And getting out of your PJs.
Well, we're really fortunate. So we've got a whole project team looking at this. We're calling it New Q because it's looking at two parts, which is returning to the office safely for those who've been working at home. We've always had some critical workers at present at the office, and then the other part of it is new ways of working, which, to your point earlier, is how do we take the best of what's happened here and some of that innovation and build that into our DNA as we move forward. So I think when we're looking at how we manage that return to the office, we've made sure that we've surveyed our people. And we got, it's probably like 90% participation rate in the survey, just saying to people, what is it you're looking for? What's working well? What can we improve? And I think as you gradually return, so we've done a staggered approach so that if there's any breakouts in COVID cases in Queensland, we can, pause and pivot and move back and in. So it's really testing almost our business continuity plan in reverse, going back. And we made that decision last Thursday. So we had, and because we've got representation on this project across our
Thursday? Just because people were starting to come back and then there was a second wave.
So with our project team, we've got representation across all of our business units and divisions. And with the project team, they came to us as the executive last Thursday because we were about to have about another 100 people transition back this week. And the feedback they were getting was, people are feeling nervous about it. Potentially, if there is an outbreak in Queensland, what would that look like? And we just went, that's fine. We'll just press pause. We'll press pause on the return for another 2 weeks. We'll see what happens in Queensland. And I think it is with our return to the office project, we've said that we've got a plan around that, but we've said that it's fluid. And it's not, well, we've said that 100 people have to come next week, so do it. We've just said it's fluid. We will change and respond as we need to. That's because of our people are telling us something or the environment or something else goes on. So
because also with you, it's not just, I'm sure they feel safe at home and they feel safe in the office, but they've got to get from A to B. So public transport, they're coming into contact with lots of other people, and that's got nothing to do with you, and yet it's going to impact you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Next question. This is from Beck for everyone. Question to the panel. We are seeing an alarming rate of domestic violence increased in COVID times. What are your organisations doing to support staff in working from home under these difficult circumstances? It's a good question.
Yeah. One of the things we did was really just raise awareness around it. And because the thing is as well, if someone is experiencing domestic violence, even in non-COVID times, to say to someone, this is what I'm experiencing and I need help is hard. Yeah. And then in COVID, they could be in a, work might have been their safe space.
Yeah.
Whereas now they're at home, which was not. So one of the things we've done is really just continue to raise awareness and letting people know if there is, and we always said to people, look, if you need to return to the office because you can't work at home, and we didn't say you had to say why. It could have been, we've got some people that's construction or kids, whatever. We said that we're happy to facilitate that. Just speak to your leader and let us know, because we were very mindful that our people are a subset of the community. It is out there. Yeah, of course. You sit there and go, it's going to be happening for some of our people, whether they share or not. So we made it easy for people to, we raised the awareness. It made, it was bringing people in. Also with our marketing team, we partner with DV Connect. So when they had their candlelight vigil, it was making sure there was awareness around that, but also for our members. We had that on our website and just raising a bit of awareness as well in the broader community, because it's a big one.
But also, I think there's the big campaign, Are You Okay?
Yeah.
But actually, it's what happens if someone says no. So we're all being taught how to ask the question, but if someone then says, I'm not okay, what do we all do in that space as organisations or individuals that go, right, okay, I've got to know what to do next? And that's everyone's responsibility, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, lots of questions are coming through on similar themes. Basically, life coach and work-life balance. Do you think life coaches are needed during this situation to keep us motivated? And tips for work-life balance. How do you stop working and do something to relax? There's lots to chew on there.
Yeah, I think the earlier point about, particularly if you're working from home, and that second question, how do you ensure that you stop? Because the lines can become very blurred, and it might mean that you still work your 8 hours, but you work it over 14 hours because you stop in the morning and you do a load of washing or whatever it might be, and then you go back to your work and then you stop again, and so you're working longer.
Yeah.
I think that blurring is something that we do need to monitor, and I think it's particularly prevalent with the younger generation who are very digitally savvy and get engrossed in it. So I think there's something in there for us to keep an eye on. You do need to be self-disciplined, particularly while you are working remotely, and switch off.
And I think it's try a few things and work out what works for you. I have 2 mobile phones. I have a work one and a personal one. Everyone just goes, seriously, why do you carry 2 mobile phones? And I have done it all my career.
I do too.
I used to have a boss, not in this organisation, one many, but who actually felt that if you had a work phone, you were on call 24/7. So I never had a work phone. And people knew if they wanted to contact me that they could, and I still do the same thing today. And I just gave myself a long weekend. So I had Friday, Monday off to take a break. And I said to people, the work phone will be sitting on my desk at home. If there is something urgent, my personal one is what I'll carry, and that's speaker. And they went, that's fine, we've got it, it's all covered. And that's how I do it, because when you carry that work phone, there's always that temptation, quickly see it.
Yeah, I'll just check it.
And I sit there and go,
that email.
Because I sit there and go, there's people back in the office that have it covered. If something happens, they've got it covered. And if there is something they desperately need to ring you about, they know how to find me on my personal phone. So that's one of the tricks that I've always had for myself, and
it's worth the treat.
It just works for me because it gives me that separation.
And discipline. You do have to say enough's enough at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, this is Kerry, to discuss and expand your own experiences and tips. This is good. Financial resilience. What tips do you have to sustain financial resilience, particularly for us women? This is such a big one. We could do a whole other hour on this one.
We really could. I mean, financial literacy is so important for everyone, but particularly, for women. One of the concerning things has been the rate at which women are withdrawing their superannuation. And we know that, if you're 20 now and you take the $20,000 out of your super, the consequence for your retirement is like $120,000. So it's really significant. And before you make those sorts of decisions, you need to understand the implications.
For me, when it comes to financial, it's make some time to yourself to educate, and whether that be on just understanding what your bills are and when they're coming in, where you spend your money, but also understanding the different mechanisms out there, and learning a little bit more about super. And some people might say, "Oh, that's a little bit dry, and that's in the future." But all organisations have people in member centres. But if you want to understand a little bit more about what you've got, give them a call. They're there to help and simplify things for you. So, I think for me, it's just take a little bit of interest. Give yourself some time to educate yourself on whatever it is that you want to know a little bit more about. Be it your budget, be it shares, be it super, and maybe just say I'm going to give myself 10 minutes a week. Just to add to my education and understanding.
I'd go a step further than that, only based on my own personal experience. My husband died suddenly, and I was the breadwinner in our family, but I had no idea about our finances. In that moment, it took me months to come to terms with, I didn't know what our bank passwords were. I mean, I literally was completely ignorant. Kylie, you raise your eyebrows. I agree with you. I should have, right? But I think there are a lot of women, particularly now in this situation, where finances are all over the place. You've got to know. And the other thing I would say, just personally, you've got to have your own money, even if it's just a tiny little amount that enables you to be able to feed your kids if something happens. And the amount of women that don't, honestly, I so get it. I considered myself a very well-educated person, but it was always something that my husband did, and I didn't want to think about it. And it's so important. It's so important.
And I think culturally, and historically, there's been a taboo, particularly around women talking about money. It's seen as, it's not nice to talk about money. But I would encourage you to talk about money with your female friends, to ask them about finances, to benchmark your salaries, to ask them if they're prepared for retirement and what their strategies are. It's a really important conversation that women should be having with each other.
Yeah, and just be informed. Thanks everyone for all your questions coming through. We really don't have time for anything else, but just before we say goodbye, are there any other comments that you guys would like to make before we close?
I think just around self-care, it's so important at the moment to, really be kind to yourself, and being kind to yourself and maintaining your own personal well-being then enables you to be kind to everyone around you and recognise that, as a community, everything that we are doing is impacting on everybody else at the moment.
I agree.
Yeah. I think for me, one of the things that one of my colleagues said at the beginning of this is there is no playbook for this. We're in it together. We'll do our best. So for me, it's just remembering there is no playbook. We are in this together, and also reach out and ask for support. There is plenty of people out there that are there to support you, whether it's just even a friendly ear to listen to. So reach out as well.
Yeah, and get up, dress up, show up, and you're already halfway there.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining She's on Q and our first ever virtual only event. I'd like to thank our wonderful panellists for their contribution and insights today. Thank you, ladies. And the recording of this virtual event will be available later today to view on demand. So for more inspiring content for professional women, visit shesonq.com.au. Thank you so much for attending today. By joining us, you've invested in your professional development. The more you know, the more right at the moment I needed to say confident. The more confident and empowered you become to take control of your future. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation, had some great information to take away, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us.